In this episode, I talk with Mid-Michigan local Dayon Williams. Dayon shares what his weight loss journey was like. He highlights the importance of exercise and a proper diet. There is so much inspiration that can be found in someone's weight loss journey that can cause others to make a positive change in their lives, and I hope that you find his story as inspiring as I did. And if you are motivated by his story to make a change in your life, I'm sure he wouldn't mind hearing about it. Whether it's fitness related, business related, goal related, whatever it is, I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Just simply reach out to him on social media. His Facebook and Instagram are tagged in the show notes. And as always, please consider following me on social media for future podcast swag giveaways. Thanks again for listening. Enjoy. All right. Welcome to the Rise and Above podcast. My name is David Hess, and today I have Dayon Williams with me.
Yep.
I said that right?
Uh-huh.
All right, cool. I'm terrible with names. Anyways, Dayon, he works at a local marketing place here in Lansing. He's from the Lansing area, and he came on because he kind of wanted to share his personal story and on his personal weight loss journey. Anyways, Dayon, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Thank you for coming on and being willing to do this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. It's a pretty cool thing, and I'm excited to share my story and help some people out if I can.
Absolutely. So, where are you from? Are you from the Lansing area?
So I'm originally from Detroit,
Okay.
west side of Detroit. That's where I grew up pretty much my whole life until 5th grade. I was a little bit back and forth in Ohio too.
Okay.
So my dad worked in athletics. He worked at Ohio State, Bowling Green, Michigan State.
Wow, what does he do?
So he was an academic coordinator. So
Okay.
pretty much the way I kind of translate it is like a counselor at high school, but specializing in people who do athletics, of course. But that's kind of like his gist of his job, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, so did that a lot. Let's see. So Bowling Green, Columbus, Toledo a little bit, and then Michigan. Yep, so Lansing. So originally from Detroit, moved to Lansing when I was in 5th grade.
You kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, I have. And I want to say when I started, probably from even preschool to 4th grade, I think I switched schools maybe like 3 or 4 times. So,
Okay.
yeah, I have been a lot, around
Wow.
a lot, yep.
Well, that's awesome. Now, you just recently graduated high school, right?
Yep,
And
graduated in 2019.
You're going to LCC,
Yep.
which is a local Lansing Community College. What are you going for?
So right now I'm going for paralegal, actually. That could change, of course, because now I'm into marketing. So,
Do you enjoy that?
yeah, I do actually. So I don't want to say I got into it like by chance, but it didn't happen conventionally. Like most people will, of course, go to school, get their degree, and then get a job. I'm kind of like a trial and error learner anyway.
Mhm.
So finding my job through that way was kind of helpful. I would say it kind of started in high school. So I did a little bit of party promotions. So like people were having party, I'd be like, hey, something to me. I'll post them on my social medias, and then it was
Cool.
pretty good turnout from there. So just learning it from there on, and then having the opportunity to actually just work with a painting company in Lansing, M1 Paint. So I got to work with them for a while and then help them out. Still helping them out right now with doing a website, and then actually like learning how to paint, learning how to work on houses, things like that.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's see what else. I would say too that I enjoy marketing because my way of it, I would say, is definitely unconventional. I like to kind of work with the business, see the ins and out of it, kind of work like a regular worker or a person. I don't know, like if you go to Quality Dairy and you're a cashier, I like to work like see things like that, like
See how it works,
Yeah,
and
see
then
how it
see
runs
how
from
things would apply to them.
yep, and then like kind of figuring it out yourself, and then looking from it from a viewer or consumer standpoint and seeing like just all angles of it. So yeah, it's definitely a perfect thing for me because I'm all over the place. So it allows me ability to communicate and to network with a lot of people, to also help out and kind of see what I like and what I don't like.
And you're doing a lot of like local businesses, right?
Yeah, so I would say mostly I would specialize in small businesses.
Okay.
It's kind of like myself, I like ramped up with like the people I've been working with. Like I said, I kind of got into it in an unconventional way, just kind of working, and then it kind of just happened. And from all my experiences in life, kind of just came together. But yeah.
Now, do you guys do anything with like you said you're creating a website? So you do like website creations?
Yeah, so me, I would say I'm best at website creations. That's
Okay.
kind of another way that I got into it. I kind of started my own website, just messing around with it. Even I would say back in like elementary school, which is kind of weird now thinking about it because it's like a flashback on life. But there used to, I don't even remember the website, but there used to be like a website that all the kids, not all the kids used to go on, but a couple of my friends used to go on during school, and it allowed you to like customize your own web page. So like they would have preloaded games. You can put them on there, like a home page, different pages and stuff like that.
Do you know what that was called when I was in high school?
What?
MySpace.
Yeah, I have some older siblings who are familiar with MySpace. Unfortunately, I wasn't old enough to get on there, but
Yeah.
I wish I could have like at least seen like how it ran and things like that.
Dude,
But
MySpace was a shit back in the day.
I know that's what my sister used to be on there all night, all times of night,
Dude.
and then especially on the big computer monitors with the thick keyboards.
Yep.
Yep.
That's hilarious. So you do a lot of website design. Maybe you should help me out with one.
Oh yeah, of course, definitely. I mean, I love making websites. It's really not that hard. Because I like to go based off templates.
Okay.
And then I also did, I want to say, coding in high school. So I did AP
wow.
Comp Sci for a year, which was really like out of my out of my comfort zone a little bit. But I love like testing the boundaries and trying things that people wouldn't expect for me to kind of be into.
Okay.
But yeah, I love making websites. I mean, it's kind of easy to me now, and I don't even realize it. I want to say a lot. Yeah,
you just kind of get in the mode of doing it. And just,
but a lot of times, I mean, I'm hard on myself too. So like, I kind of never feel like I'm accomplished or fully finished with like any work that I'm doing.
It's kind of like a piece of art.
Yeah,
in a sense.
yeah.
Like mean, like my wife's a painter, and she's like, it never feels like it's done.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's probably the same thing. It's like that's your art.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge when it's like, because there's always more that can be added. There's always like a little bit more like flavor, whatever it can be. There's always something that can intrigue people a little bit more. So I think for me, it's really just figuring out and finding out that everything doesn't, so to say, have to be perfect.
Right.
But my thing is to get it up and running, and then let's try to get to perfect.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's real cool. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you to get a hold of you to create a website or maybe help them with some marketing things,
yep.
Where could they find you?
Or
could they find any of your work online?
Yeah, so I actually have a website. It's dkillmedia.com, DKILL media.com. So if you go in there, you'll kind of get a little bit of information just about like me, like my company, like the type of work I've done, like some businesses that I worked with.
Cool.
I don't know if I have like the list of businesses I worked with up yet, but you'll get like a little bit of a gist of like what I do.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm more so of like I don't want to say like a modernistic type person, but a phone, like a phone call, a text message. I mean, that's good with me. That's how I communicate half the time. But yeah, dkillmedia.com, and then I mean, yeah, my number. I don't know if you can drop that somewhere here.
Yeah, I for sure can put it in the notes.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, guys. Let me know. Whatever work you need done, I love it.
Now, do you do any like app creations or anything like that, or do you know anybody who does that?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy that you say that too, because I feel like I'm like somebody who knows like a lot of people for a lot of things. Like people come to me a lot, like, "Hey, do you know somebody for this? Do you know somebody for that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, ironically, I do." I attribute it a lot to like Okemos, being around a good like diverse group of people, and like people from all different like backgrounds and different areas and doing different things. But yeah, I got into app development a little bit in high school when I was doing that AP Comp Sci class.
Okay.
That was actually kind of fun too. And it kind of related back to like when I was doing the website back in elementary school, like adding games and stuff like that. I wouldn't say I'm like professionally experienced with like working with JavaScript, C script, stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely can get something together.
That's cool. Just the other day, yesterday, I had a guy in here who he started a business, and his business, I think it's called the Red Bike Delivery. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I'm not.
But it's kind of like Uber Eats, but on a bicycle, and he's kind of like working with these local restaurants to deliver things, and he also delivers things like if you need like groceries or something, he'll pick it up for you and drop it off. But he's doing it all on a bike because he wants to be eco-friendly and whatnot.
I love that. I actually spent some time, probably about a good 3 or 4 months on a bike. During quarantine time. My car was down, so that's when I got into running more and then biking. But I mean, being more eco-friendly, I think that a lot of us don't always see like the effects immediately, but to know that like long-term and down the line is definitely like some damage that can be done if you don't like, if you're not knowledgeable on the things that are going on. And
yeah, I mean, if you're just dumping shit into the air all day long, you're eventually something's gonna happen.
I know.
Yeah, he was telling me that because I was asking him because like with like Uber Eats and all these different food delivery things, you can like pull up on your phone on the
Yep.
app and see like where they're at
Yeah.
and what, or you can order directly from
Yep.
them or whatever. And he was saying that he doesn't have an app yet, and he was looking into it, but it was like 30 some $1,000,
Yeah, it is.
and
It
it's
is.
it's expensive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I actually talked to. I mean, I wouldn't even say this is kind of related to apps, but I know like websites and like domains and stuff
Hmm.
like that. Like prices for that, I never even knew. Like, there's a whole different market out there of just buying domain names and selling them
Really?
because they can resell for up to like even higher than that, like in the hundreds of thousands, like
Wow.
30, 20,000. But yeah, I mean, it is a. I don't know, working with like coding a little bit and making apps a little bit. If you know how to do it, it's pretty easy. Like you can
Hmm.
get through it fast. But I do know, yeah, it does cost a little bit of money to get everything up and running.
Wow. Yeah, I was thinking maybe if you knew somebody, I could hook him up with you,
I
but
do know somebody who does like, I don't know if it's like a geo map or something. Because one of my friends from high school, when I was doing my website, it was actually, I want to say, kind of during like the peak of like the protests and things like that. So we were trying to figure out a way if you could like do a geo map of like all the killings and things that have happened like just
okay.
around the world. So I know that he's pretty good with doing like really high tech stuff like that.
How successful was he at that?
I don't. I didn't really go any further with it
Okay.
because it was just a lot for me at the time with what I
Hmm.
was trying to do. I know that he's really, really good at it.
Okay.
I know a lot of other people too who are really, really good at it. I would say Okemos produces a lot of like a, yes,
Technological,
yes,
yeah,
a
advancements.
lot of technological advance people and advancements. We had like a solar panel club. I think that they kind of extended a little bit through high school, and they actually just had like a car that they built and tried to
In
take it.
high school.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that so we had like a solar club in high school. They kind of were like, I don't know, getting like the quirks and things like sorted out because I think it was relatively new, if I'm correct. But I know a couple of the people I graduated year with in a year before they kind of had like it carried on like after high
Wow.
school because I think that's what they do full time. But they had like a solar car that went from New York that they were trying to get to LA. It didn't make it to LA.
Wow.
But even like I don't know, putting a solar car together and getting that like across country, like that's pretty.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, yeah,
That makes me have hope for humanity.
yeah.
My daughter goes to Okemos school, so
Oh no, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you ask some people now, they'll say it's in a little bit of a decline
yeah.
sports wise. And I know like a couple of the principals have left. But I mean, I love Okemos. I would say like I would recommend anyone to take their kids to Okemos because, like I said, it's just a diverse background.
Hmm.
You'll get to learn a lot from different people. The teachers there aren't like too harsh. I mean, of course, any school you go to, you'll find like one or two or three
Right.
teachers you don't like.
Right.
But it's definitely a great experience, and it's helped like shape my life to where it is now. So I appreciate it.
That's cool. So let's kind of talk about your weight loss journey, and first, if you don't mind talking about what led you to putting on all that weight,
Yeah.
because like
So
I think a lot of times with people, I mean, people put on weight for different reasons, like it stress induced, or they might have like depression, and they kind of like resort to eating, or they
yeah,
don't eat,
yeah,
or
true.
whatever. So
I would say for me, it probably started when I was way younger. So I want to say it probably started in like third grade. I started gaining weight. It was just because like my mom would feed me in large amounts. Like just being a mom, I felt like she kind of felt like maybe she had to just like I don't know like nurture and care and like kind of just
uh
over loaded me.
overextend herself.
Yeah, overextended herself with like
Yeah.
me and like snacks and sweets and stuff like that. But I would say it really like kind of picked up in high school and middle school. Being so young, like you don't even like realize that you're just having fun and eating stuff, and then it's just
Hmm.
like boom. Um,
Probably doesn't really affect you. I mean, it doesn't really affect you generally too much when you're younger.
Yeah, 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 definitely not because it's like you kind of don't have a choice. It's kind
Right.
of just like this is the way you are, so you're gonna like make it work with
A-
whatever the situation
And
is.
your body generally can just break that stuff down because you're so
Yeah,
active.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. Yeah, so I would say too, and then high school definitely I want to say sophomore year it probably picked up. So I started playing football in sixth grade. I really wasn't that into it until probably seventh grade, eighth grade when I got a hang of it.
Okay.
And then high school came and I played lineman. So of course for a lineman you have to be big. So I
Right.
think a thing for me was I would always tell myself like, hey, let me eat this food, let me get bigger, so that I can be successful. Because at our school too, like during my years, they're usually, I don't want to like down Okemos, but we haven't been known for like the best football program overall. But my year we had like a pretty good set of linemen on both
Okay.
sides. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, let me gain this weight so I can see what I can do. I mean, it might help me out. So that was like my thing too. But I think in the back of my head, it was kind of just like a cover up of like actually just like being okay with eating the food. Like I was kind of finding a way to make it okay for myself.
Were you kind of addicted to eating certain kinds of foods? Or
I would say that I did actually, ironically enough, when like I kind of got to the point of my weight loss journey where I was like, okay, it was like a make or break moment. I was like, I kind of felt like I was addicted to food. Like I sat there and I looked at myself and I was like, do I have an addiction to food? Because it just like, I don't know. It's not like you can't stop. It's just subconscious in a sense.
Mhm.
Like you don't always realize it. So I had to come to a point to myself where I was like, okay, maybe I'm not like I had to break it down in a couple stages. I didn't want to be too harsh on myself. And another thing that I learned from, I will say, with gaining weight, is that I noticed like the tricks that food and like you can like the tricks that you can play on yourself, and like not even realize it. So like part of my weight loss journey was like kind of reversing those tricks
Mhm.
and like putting them to my benefit. Not all the ways that I did, I would say, are the healthiest or the best ways.
Right.
But I definitely did at least learn something from gaining all that weight. Is like, because again, back to like when I thought that okay, you're addicted to food, and I was like, that's
Mhm.
kind of a crazy thing to think that you can be addicted to a food. I know as funny as it sounds, and then I kind of just got to the point to where it's like, okay, if I can be addicted, I can be unaddicted at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you realize like I need to lose some weight? I need to do something, and what did you start doing to make a change?
Well, I think when I started realizing, like, okay, hey, I need to do something about this. For any guy, I mean, of course, it's like girls. So for me, I mean, just to be like blunt about it, I think for the most part, it was girls. And then also football. So I actually started running a little bit more because of a girl. I think I had gone through a
Okay.
breakup.
Oh yeah.
And then I started running a little bit more, getting a little bit more active. And then actually, I want to say my junior year, I had ended up like we had a mile run for the football team. I ended up in like 10th place out of the whole team, and I think
Wow.
I finished with like a 6:40 mile time. So
Wow.
like my whole middle school career, um, when I first moved to Okemos, it's funny or not, cause funny enough, I didn't know anything about a mile. So like a mile run in Okemos is a pretty big deal. So they do
Okay.
like a chieftain challenge for it in like middle school. So it's like it's timed. You run during gym class. You get it timed. If you make the time, you get to run this big like race during the
Okay.
school year. We take a day off. So my first run ever, I want to say, is like 16 minutes. Because I didn't know
Wow.
that they expected us to run the whole time. And I'm like just some little chubby short kid. And I'm like, okay, you want me to run from here to here? Okay, cool, I got that. I don't know if I'm going to run the whole way, but I'm going to get some walking in too. So it was like 16 minutes, and I'm like the second to last person. I'm like, wow, this is horrible. And then getting a little bit older, understanding that I can control my body a little bit more, and actually like
Mhm.
taking it as like, okay, hey, let me try to do something a little bit more. I hadn't really gotten into like, I want to say, working out and like really knowing the type of foods that need to go in your body, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I was just running based off like everything that I basically was at the time. So
Right.
eating a little bit worse probably. But I remember like very vividly that I always tried to like break a 8 minute mark, and I never could. Like I think I got like closest I got was 8:01 one time, and I'm like,
Wow.
I can't even get a 7:59. Like come on. um,
801's pretty good though.
I
That's
know,
that's pretty
yeah,
fast.
yeah. I mean, it was pretty good, but for me, I was like, okay, I just need to break this 8 because I've gotten 8 and then
Right.
over all the time. So yeah, high school, that was a pretty good achievement, and I want to say a mark in my weight loss journey that kind of sparked me. I will say I regressed after that. So the year after
Mhm.
that, I didn't do like that much running. I kind of went back to like, hey, let me put on some weight so I can like be a little bit more efficient. Maybe it'll help me out in my position. Um, I don't want to say it didn't help, but now looking at it from like being in high school and then being out of high school, I'm like, I feel like there could have been like a kind of like weight loss, like, I don't know, like gym class, I don't know, after school, something or program to kind of like, if you're doing sports, especially football and linemen,
Mhm.
there has to be something set up for like after that, whether it's in NFL, college,
Right.
high school, because I mean, if you're that position, 9 times out of 10, like the weight you are isn't like healthy.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely feel like there should be something in place after that. But yeah, so
What do you mean in place? Like a weight
Like
loss program?
like a program, or just like working with the trainers at school, like wherever school you're at. Like I said, even if it's in college, D1, D2, D3,
Yeah.
NFL, no matter what it is, but just trying to like understand like what is like being healthy, because I mean
Right.
at that point, like being a lineman, like I used to eat like, I don't know, 4 cheeseburgers, a McChicken, like French fries, and used to think that it was okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably burning it off when you're playing a game.
True, and that was another thing too. Where back to like how I gained my weight. Another thing, big thing for me too, was I used to ride my bike, because I lived close enough to the dollar store in Oakland. So I used to ride my bike from my apartment to the dollar store, get snacks, come home, eat them, and watch TV. But my theory was me riding the bike there and back would burn the calories that I'm gaining from eating the snacks. Soon to find out, didn't
Right.
work out. But yeah,
It's a good theory.
Yeah.
In theory. Wow.
Yeah.
So that was in high school. You kind of realized that you needed to start losing some weight.
Yep.
And you started taking some proactive steps, riding bikes, running, for girls. And then what? You said you kind of regressed a little bit.
Yeah, so I want to say, I definitely regressed like senior year of high school. So senior year of high school, probably into that summer. Actually, no, probably that winter. So till that probably November of like 2019 is when I started like, hey, let me see, like I know I'm not in the best shape, and I was like, I just got tired of like waking up and having a belly like poke out, and it just felt uncomfortable to me. And one day I was just like, you know what, like let me do something about this. So November came, I took some small steps, and like a big thing for me too is like realizing over time the small steps that led you up to finally getting to like really getting your push. Because I mean, I kind of like relate it with like people, when like famous people, I don't know, like rapper, singer, no matter what it is, they're like, hey, I've been doing this for like 7 years and I'm just now getting a little bit famous, or getting a little bit of a start to it. So I kind of relate that with like losing weight and working out. It's kind of like a lot of people mess themselves up. I feel like it's trying to do everything at once. They're like, hey, all right, I need to lose weight, so let me go run 2 miles right now. 9 times out of 10, the 2 miles is going to break you down. Like for me, when I really, really started like wanting to lose weight, I just started running like a half a mile by like my house. So I did that, and then I was like, okay, I'll speed it up a little. And when I when I decided to kind of like start losing weight, wasn't the best time for the activities I was doing, because I was outdoor running all the time. That's just like, I don't know, that was the most comfortable for me. The best thing I knew.
That's the best for you though.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't even realize, I'm just like, I know I don't want to go to a gym. If I get on the treadmill, it's going to be too boring for me. Gyms overall is just boring unless it's like high intensity. I know I'm good, like if I'm at practice or something, we're doing the weightlifting session, it's high intensity music, it's good. I have people there to keep me going. But if it's just me by myself, I know that the best thing is running. So I just started out, I started out slow. So like I said, I started out with like a half mile.
Kind of going back to your point about how people just expect things to kind of just happen. Like I'm gonna go for a 10-mile run.
True.
And I'm gonna be cut.
Yeah.
Like people kind of expect those results right away.
Yeah.
Like you may see like a picture of like Brad Pitt with his shirt off or something, and you're like, or Will Smith or something. And you're like, dang, like I wish I could look like that. But in reality, that took them a long time to look that way.
And the thing too is,
and people don't realize that.
Yeah, and it was hard for me to realize, because like I hear people say that all the time who have like been bigger and then gotten skinnier, gotten fit. They'd be like, what was the process for me? And I'm like watching them like, okay, well, it's a process, but I'm trying to get there now. So telling somebody it's a process who still needs to go through the process isn't always the best thing. And I learned that even with myself.
Who do you watch any videos or anything for like motivation?
So I kind of got into David Goggins.
Dude,
yeah,
I was gonna bring him up.
Yeah, so I got into him later on, like when I kind of gotten a good start off, probably a couple months into it. But I watched like a lot of E.T. I don't know if you know E.T., the hip-hop preacher is what they call him, but he's a motivational speaker.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so my dad, ironically, with my dad working at Michigan State, I think he had kind of formed a connection with him. He was also from Detroit, so my dad's from Detroit. So I've been kind of like a little well-versed on his speeches. My dad used to make me and my sisters go to him when he hosted them at Michigan State. And back then, like just being younger, I used to be like, okay, what is this dude talking about? He's like, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe. I don't know. I don't even remember fully. But I'm like, okay, this really doesn't make sense to me. Then like getting into like running and stuff like that, that's who I look to a lot. For motivation. For me, it's music too. And then just like,
what kind of music you listen to?
A lot of underground rap, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, I'm very versatile right now, and like if I'm running or doing more activity things, and it's like underground rap, like hardcore rap.
Okay.
More so Detroit music, I would say.
Oh, cool.
But I'm really like into all different types. Like I went through probably 2 months where when I was just listening to Beethoven's like Fourth
Really?
and Fifth Symphony in the car, and my friends didn't even want to ride with me. So,
Bro, you're admitting that on
yeah,
air.
I know, but I mean, it worked for me. I try to be like, and no matter what I'm doing, I'm trying to like get into all different aspects, or
Yeah.
trying to get a sense for everything. So, music especially, I try to like tap into all different genres and categories, but mostly underground rap, rap, pop, R&B, the basics.
What kind of headphones do you use when you're running?
So I started off just with the basic, the apples with the cords.
Okay. Yeah.
My mom ended up getting me, I want to say for my birthday, the AirPod like Pros or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was at like the peak of me like really, really, really getting it in for running.
Yeah.
And I love those. Those are my favorite because it kind of freaked me out at first with it being noise canceling because I like to run by the street.
Yeah.
So not even being able to hear the cars, I'm like, hold on for a minute. So I did those. I never did the big beats because those always just fell off my head.
Right.
I don't
yeah.
understand how people can just
I
run
don't
or do
understand
workouts
it.
with those.
I don't get it.
But yeah, AirPod Pros, that's
I use Dr. Dre's Beats, the Beat Pros. Dude, I love those things.
Yep.
Those are my favorite.
I see
favorite
those
headphones.
too. Yep. And I would say for me definitely the AirPod Pros.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So, I don't think you mentioned on the podcast how much weight what weight you were at, and then how much you actually lost.
So I was at 215 to 220 probably at the end of high school, and I went down to 150. I want to say, because when I started losing weight, I didn't weigh myself at all.
Okay.
I didn't weigh myself probably for about 5 months, just because I didn't want it to. I knew with me it was going to be a habit. So I was like, if I do it once, I'm going to want to see how much I weigh all the time. And I knew
that's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
To not do that.
Yeah, I know. And then like I kind of got lucky a lot of times because a lot of things I was doing was just like subconscious. I kind of knew like it was the reverse of like what had been taking me down before.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I already know if I weigh myself, then it's not going to be a good situation because I already know how I am. I already know how I work. So it kind of, I would say too, losing weight helped me understand myself a lot more. But yeah, so from 215 to 150.
So when you lost that weight, as you started losing the weight, and then as you started creeping up on 150, how did you feel coming from the 200 to 150? How did you feel?
Yeah, so another thing for me too, when I was like kind of getting into my weight loss journey was I was like, I kind of want to see how it feels to be skinny. I know that kind of sounds funny, but I'm like, I want to see if it's a difference from being fat to being skinny. Like, what does it feel like?
Right.
So for me, like not really tracking like my weight loss journey, well, not like tracking it by pounds, of course. I kind of like, I don't want to say I got lost in the process, but I definitely got lost. Like I kind of like was just losing the weight and just looked up at 1 minute and I was like, okay, I have like close to a 6-pack, and then that motivated me more to get to a full 6-pack and then lose more weight. So yeah, I kind of forgot what the question was.
How did you feel? Like, because I would imagine that if you're over 200 pounds and you're not supposed to be, that you would feel sluggish and tired and like unmotivated.
Yeah.
It's like I know when I'm eating like shit and I'm not in a healthy state of being, that I feel like shit.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
tired all the time, don't feel motivated.
Yeah, I think a thing for me was when I was my heavier weight, like I said, when you're that weight, you really don't notice it. Like, it's just like a normal life for you. Like, that's like what your lifestyle is. So I didn't really know anything different. So at the time, but there's definitely things like I could tell, like there were some times when I would be laying in bed and I would just get like these cramps on the side of my body and it would just be crazy. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I know that at least if I lose some weight, maybe I'll feel better from it. Like, so that was a big thing. And then like being, I would say, speaking to the side of like being smaller, I mean, it's beneficial. I think I got more so into maybe like checking on myself a little bit too much more. Like even if it wasn't on a scale, then it was like in the mirror, like checking, okay, am I good here? Like, did I lose something here? Did I weigh something? Like, did I gain here? But I would say definitely like when I lost weight, I felt like more energized. I felt like I wanted to be outside more. I didn't want to be inside. Like when I gained a lot of weight and when I was a heavier weight, I like being in the dark. I like just being in my room, like just eating snacks, hanging out, playing video games. So it was definitely like a change in lifestyle and a change in feeling overall.
So what kind of food were you eating when you were Well, what kind of food do you eat now?
So now I'm actually, I think probably going on almost a year now of being like trying to be vegan for a minute, but then like now I want to say like I'm full time vegetarian.
What does that mean?
So for me, it's hard because I'm still like navigating it and getting into it.
Okay.
I'm still trying to decide if like vegetarian is better than like what I was doing before. So
What were you doing before?
all right. So when I was probably like my 215 weight, that I was eating like McDonald's, like fast food every day.
Yeah.
A lot of fried foods and like unhealthy portions. I would say that was the big thing, like just
Right.
overeating.
Yeah.
And then like when I started losing weight, I didn't really, my kind of breaking point too was quarantine. So I gradually started losing weight like that November before December. One of my friends was in the gym a lot, and he was already skinny, but he wanted to put on muscle. So I'm like,
Okay.
hey, you know what? Let me come to the gym with you. So he posted something. I'm like, hey, let me come to the gym with you, like starting. And I'm like, I told myself, I'm like, all right, let me start New Year's. And then I'm like, no, because everybody who says they want to lose weight starts on New Year's and it doesn't go well.
Right.
Because it's like you put it off to the side. So I text him, I'm like, hey, let me come to the gym with you tomorrow. And this is probably like December 15th or something.
Oh, okay.
So it's before even Christmas. And that was like the best decision of my life, just getting started with it early. Because from there on, I didn't like have a date to rely on to start and then like end or finish. And I wasn't like expecting results. So starting there, I kind of like start eating a little bit better. I want to say like more so like steaks, away from like a lot of bread, so like steaks, pasta, Alfredo, stuff like that. And then I think I remember the time where I was like when quarantine had happened or when the pandemic was just starting, and I was in school, of course. So the big thing for me was we had just gotten off spring break, so they're like, "Oh, you're about to have like another month off." I'm like, okay, that's cool with me, not expecting it to be like the whole year. But I remember like being in my bed and getting up and going to the kitchen, and I opened the like at the time I lived with my dad, so of course when you live with your parents, the fridge and like the everything is usually always stocked.
Right.
So I remember waking up, like going to eat, open like the cabinet, seeing like a bunch of chips, things like that, and I'm like, now this can either go one or two ways. Like not even thinking of like how long the pandemic was gonna last, but I'm like, okay, I can either like chill and like eat snacks, hang out in my room and be cool, or I can kind of like make a difference and change and not. So one day I just decided not to eat chips, and that led me to like where I am today. So
it was a pretty definitive moment.
Yeah, I know, and I mean,
That's
not
cool.
even realizing it. So from there on, I just kind of like started. I was like, okay, no sweets or junks. I didn't really say that to myself at the time, but that was just like in the back of my head, like I'm not gonna eat anything that I know up front is bad.
Right.
So then from there on, I didn't like necessarily. I mean, I did lower the portions of my food a little bit, but I didn't go crazy to where I'm like, okay, I'm going from eating, I don't know, 3 bags of chips and a hot dog and a hamburger a day to eating a salad. Like I didn't do that to myself because I knew like it wasn't gonna work out.
And then you're just setting yourself up for failure too.
Yeah,
if you're just eating nothing but lettuce.
I know, yeah. And I mean, a lot of people like probably think that's the best option because that's what they see like people who are where they want to be, like that's what they're eating, but that's like kind of the upkeep of it. But definitely like realizing that you don't so much have to like make a drastic change. Like a big thing for me was, okay, I'm not going to make the best decision. I'm going to make a better decision.
Right.
So instead of eating chips, let me have some blueberries or strawberries instead. But I wasn't trying to overdo it. I mean, sometimes too, like, I mean, I let myself have something here or there.
You have to.
Yeah, I know. But I will say too with that, like a lot of people in like cheat days and stuff like that, I don't think I did like a cheat day probably for about like 2 months or something when I first started. Just because, again, like I've seen so many people who like you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, I want to lose this weight, I want to get on this journey, and then the thing you look forward to is the cheat day.
Right.
So that's always keeping your mind, like no matter what you're doing, you're always going to be focused on getting to that day. And I'm like, I mean, I understand it because that's like in a sense your comfort food, but you can't like rely on that. You kind of have to. Another thing that the dude ET says is like you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that was another thing, is kind of like making myself comfortable with being uncomfortable. So even if it's like, yeah, of course I feel comfortable eating candy, but I have to make myself uncomfortable by eating the stuff that I don't want to so much right now, but I know later on it'll be a benefit.
Right. Now, did you find that when you stopped eating that stuff that you like kind of stopped craving that?
Yeah, definitely. So it definitely took a minute. And another thing that I remember from high school, my freshman year, was our gym teacher in health class telling us that if you always drink juice when you get thirsty, you're gonna want juice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you drink water when you get thirsty, you're gonna want water. So that always stuck with me, like from that point on in my life. So I kind of took that too, and I was like, okay, that kind of plays into like no matter what, like even if it's food, it's such a drink, whatever. So
do you know anything about your gut microbiome and how like people say it all the time. I hate this phrase, but you are what you eat type of thing.
Yeah.
You literally are kind of what you eat, because if you eat junk food all the time, eat pasta, you eat like sugary things, that's what you're going to crave, because that's what you've been putting into your body.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you start eating salads daily, I mean, and the thing is, you don't have to eat salads to be healthy.
Exactly.
You can eat a steak and maybe some rice.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the person. But you'll crave those things too, because that's what you've been eating.
True. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And that was a big thing for me. Going back to it, like I said, with the chips and the candies and stuff like that, like just you kind of have to get to a point of pushing yourself past that point of where you're like, okay, I'm not gonna do it today. Let me just make it to tomorrow. And my whole big thing too was
that's that uncomfortable phase.
Exactly, that's the uncomfortable phase. But then when you realize, you look up in like 2 weeks and you're like, okay, I don't even want this anymore. I don't even want candy. Like I think it probably was like maybe at least a couple months before I even had a craving for chocolate or candy or anything like that. Just because I had like completely taken myself off of it, and I knew that I couldn't remove sugar, so I tried to replace that with like fruit. And like having that be my sweet type of thing. Yeah. So just trying to like play the system, I say in a lot of ways, is trying to like just, okay, if I can't have this, what can I have that kind of will keep me reminiscent of it, but not with the as bad.
I know for me, one thing I like to do, and I don't know if it's necessarily the healthiest thing to do, but it's definitely better than eating like candy. Like after dinner, a lot of times I'm like, man, I really wish I had a dessert. Yeah. Like, I want some ice cream. When I'm like being kind of crazy with my diet and whatnot, I'll have like a protein shake because it'll fill me. Yeah. And then I'll take a scoop of peanut butter and I'll just eat peanut butter, and then that curbs the craving.
Yeah, no, definitely. So. And I mean, those are the type of things you like kind of have to do. And I would say too, like for anybody who's trying to lose weight, you kind of like, for me, a big thing is like the shoe doesn't fit everybody.
Right, exactly.
So you have to figure out what works for you. Like somebody could be watching this podcast, you could go watch another like, I don't know, specific weight loss or health podcast, and you might like take things from it. Yeah. But what I did and what you did or what somebody else did isn't going to work for somebody. Right. So that was a big thing of me realizing too, like, okay, I'm getting all this information, but all of it may not work for me. Right. Like my body is different. Like some of the things, like some people, I got a friend who literally has had a six-pack for like 5 years, and he eats McDonald's every day.
Is his name Cipriano? Because that seems like that's my friend.
No, I mean, but we could probably all attest. Like we all have that friend who eats horrible all the time and like stays the same weight. And I'm like, okay, like how do you do that? But in reality, like that's not your body. Like you kind of have to just let it go and figure out what works for you. But only I mean, what worked for me is figuring it out along the way. Right. I didn't really like. I wasn't on a timetable to lose weight. It kind of happened gradually. Like another thing that I told myself every time I was running was like, okay, this is going to be like a 1 to 2 year process to be where I want to be. And I would like actually like tell myself that as I was running, just so that I would kind of build it up and know that, okay, what I'm doing right now, I may not get the results that I want in the short term, because I know if you're looking short term for results, it's not going to work out, because you're just going to fall flat again, because you're going to be like, I'm not where I want to be. Exactly.
So how did you get on to the vegan diet and then the vegetarian?
Yeah. So,
where'd that come about?
So I would say it definitely came with when I was, again, at the peak of like my weight loss and running so much, like just every day, like running 2-3 times a day, like pretty much for the whole day. Then kind of getting reacclimated back into life. I mean, that's kind of the thing for all of us, from going to like a pandemic and then kind of like progressing back into regular life, was like seeing all my friends again, being with people. Another thing that I kind of like, that kind of helped too, was like my weight loss was during the pandemic. So it wasn't really too much you could do. You could either stay home or do something. So for me, it was like, I don't want to stay home, I'm going to go run. And I would be out running all day. But I kind of isolated myself too, like from people. I kind of changed my schedule, so I wouldn't even be up at the same time that like my parents were or like my sisters were. Like I kind of like ran on a different time, but that was just because I knew that. I mean, at first it was kind of like subconscious. I was just doing it, but then it kind of worked out because I realized and learned another thing too is like food is really like a social standard a lot of times too. Like you use it for like a conversation, like, hey, we need
Right.
to have this conversation. You want to go out to lunch?
Right.
So not
Yeah.
having that anymore, not being like, oh, you want to hang out, and then just being bored and getting food to eat. Because that's
Yeah.
like a lot of times like how you gain weight is just like being bored.
Right.
Like that's the number one that's the number one thing that's gonna get you like keep gaining weight and keep gaining weight is being bored.
Right.
So kind of like just keeping myself occupied. And then again back to getting reacclimated, so having to like deal with people again. Oh, you want to go to dinner? Okay, this and that. So I kind of had to keep myself honest. So it was kind of a switch to me because I'm like, okay, if I'm vegetarian, if I'm vegan, I can't eat a burger if we go out to eat, or I can't stop at McDonald's just like, hey, I'm hungry really quick, I know I'm not supposed to eat this, but let me just get it.
Right.
So it was a way to keep me like honest to like my diet and keep me kind of structured. And then also for me, I kind of have to like have things in my life that are, I don't want to say disciplined, but kind of keep me structured. So whether it's like, I don't know, like some people might have a bedtime. My parents didn't really like raise me with having to like fall under like the normal social standards of like a kid, like having bedtimes, things like that. Like, of course, it was like per my age, but I thank them a lot too because I kind of learned how to like
manage things on your own.
Yeah, manage things on your own. And I mean, that's what life is. Like,
if you go to bed late and you still got to go to school tomorrow,
exactly,
you're gonna be tired as fuck if you don't go to bed.
And you got to deal with the consequence of that. So like, I mean, that's a lot of like what shaped me into being who I am today, like trial and error.
Right.
That's like a big deal for me. It's just like trying things out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yeah.
So you didn't do like a vegetarian or vegan diet because of like
losing like a diet wise, or
no, you didn't do it for like what would you say, like an ethical reasonings?
No, if I'm being honest, I want to say what really started me off was, I don't know if you know who Lil Durk is.
No.
So he's a rapper, and I think I was watching one of his videos on YouTube, and he was like, yeah, I don't even eat meat, like I just like eat salads, like stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. Let me try that out. And I tried it out, and it kind of just like kept me going from like there on.
So what do you do to kind of get the supplements you need, like protein wise, and like just some of the other?
That's funny that you say that. I actually watched a podcast, and I think it was on like vegan eating and vegetarian eating, and they were like, the one thing that you're going to get annoyed with all the time with is like when you're being vegetarian or vegan is people who are like, so where do you get your protein from? So for me, just the way I work is like not getting too much into the details of things. Of course, with some things like you need to, it's necessary. But for me, I kind of like, I never really honestly paid attention to like, okay, if I'm getting enough of this, am I getting enough of that? I just was kind of focused on like how my body ran at the time. So I kind of just gauged it off how I felt like. And with running, it was kind of a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, sometimes like I could drink a bottle of water before I go run, and I could just like get cramps out of nowhere. Or I could eat before I go run, and then I would know like depending on what I eat, like if I eat a steak or if I eat pasta before I run, it'll affect me different from if I have some candy or something, or even if I just have 2 pieces of candy or a donut. So that's kind of how I gauge things. I would say like me switching to vegetarian and vegan for a minute was like, to keep me honest on just making sure that I don't go off the track with like starting to eat a horrible food, because I know that I was like starting to like get a little bit less into running, just because like the way that life was going at the time, it was like being back outside, being with people, being with family, a little bit of work. So that was kind of like my main thing of it, but it wasn't really for like any like value or anything like that. So I guess to answer your question of like how did I make sure I like had all the things that I needed,
you don't really gauge it. You just
no. I mean, my mom made me or got me some like, she ordered me like a pack of 50 like multivitamin things or whatever.
Okay.
I tried to take them for a day, and then my stomach hurt, and I was like, I'm off this. I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
So you don't do anything special.
No.
You don't eat anything special. You just what do you eat?
So now I love French fries. But I would say mostly anything that doesn't have meat in it, if I'm being honest with you. Because like I said, I'm still in the stage where I'm like learning like what
you can eat as a vegetarian.
And like not even like what, I mean, what you can eat, but like, I mean, I'm big into cooking too. So like what can I cook? I mean, a lot of stuff has meat in it. That's just like the world we live in. It's hard to find like vegetarian options and vegan options. But before, I would say that I ate like a lot of steak. A lot of
They make
pasta,
tofu
stir
steaks
fry.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not big into like the Beyond Meats and things like that.
Okay.
I'm just like, I mean, if I'm not having meat, it's whatever. I'll just leave it
Right.
alone. It doesn't like affect me to that point. Again, it's kind of
Right.
like the
Yeah.
same thing with sweets. Like if it's kind of taken out of your life, if you don't have it, you
Mhm.
kind of forget about it. You won't have a craving for it. Like
Right.
I honestly, like being 100% honest, I think that I probably have not have like a craving for meat probably like maybe once or twice for like chicken
Wow.
wings, but like steak, hamburgers, things like that is kind of like not even really in my memory anymore.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, so now like fruits, vegetables. I love what is it, the edamame seeds or whatever, the pods.
Oh, okay.
Salads. I mean, I do like these like chicken. They come in like a green pack. They're like vegetarian, like fake chicken, of course, but I'll make that and make it like a buffalo chicken sandwich.
Okay. Do you find it that it's expensive to eat that way?
It depends. I feel like if you're kind of more experienced, then you
Mhm.
know that you don't need like all the stuff that like
Right.
people kind of make it seem like
Right.
for a normal person. I feel like a normal person is like, if I'm eating healthier, their number one thing is to go to Whole Foods.
Mhm.
So for me, it was like realizing you don't really need the expensive stuff or the really good like organic this, organic that. It's just
Right.
really like making like it is a little bit more expensive, but it just depends on like I really feel like on like your expertise level. And
Right.
I mean, if you know how to cook or not, like if you know how to cook, you
Mhm.
know how to like mix things together, you know what to do, so it's not that hard. Like it's not that hard for me to go
Right.
from eating stir fry with steak to just making stir fry without it.
Right.
So I kind of just look at it that way. I mean, there's been times to where I've like gone to the grocery store and maybe spent like $200 or like $150 and like haven't expected. But it also
Mhm.
goes to too like having a plan before you go into the store.
Right.
Like even if you're eating like healthy or if you're eating not healthy, whether you're vegetarian, whether you eat meat, it doesn't matter. Going into the grocery store and having a plan, knowing what you're wanting. For me too, I'm not like I'm a person who like I don't know what I want to eat until the day of.
Dude, that's how I am too.
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of have to like work with how you are as a person. Like again, like
Right.
one shoe, like it doesn't fit everybody, so you kind of have to figure out what works for you. So for me, like I can save a lot of money if I go into the grocery store knowing that I'm gonna have, I don't know, like a Caesar salad for one day. If I'm gonna have
Right.
Alfredo and stir fry, then yeah, I can probably like spend $60 and be good for the week. But if I go
Mhm.
in there like I have no idea what I want, I'm gonna spend a lot more. And then
Right.
if you are like mostly vegetables, things like that, it might be a little bit more pricier because it's easier just to go grab a $9 two steaks or
Right.
a pack of chicken wings for $6
Yeah.
and knowing that at least you're gonna use it. But I will say too, it's harder because I mean, just dealing with fresh produce, like you have to eat it in a certain amount of
Right,
time. Like
yeah.
it can't just sit there forever.
Kind of makes you a little bit more thoughtful too on what you eat.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, for me, I kind of started paying attention definitely a lot more to what I ate and how it
Mhm.
affected me. Just because,
Would you say that paying more attention to what you eat was the bigger part of your weight loss?
definitely. But I didn't realize it at first.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for me, it was cutting portions at first. Like, I was still, I don't want to say I was eating the same thing, but I remember one day I probably had like 3 Brussels sprouts, like maybe a piece of salmon or something, and like a little salad on the side. But I just like, I don't know why that picture always flashes in my mind from that to eating, I don't know, like a whole plate of like macaroni and stuff like that. But I definitely, yeah, I mean, you pay attention to it a lot more, and especially like when you're on the journey, when you're working out a little bit more. I mean,
Mhm.
even if you work out for 3 days, like you'll start realizing somebody runs, like if somebody goes runs right now who hasn't been running in a month, they can probably like quickly be like, oh, I know everything that made me suffer through this.
Mhm.
So
That'd be
that-
me.
Yeah, I know.
I
So that's
haven't ran in a while.
so that's my big thing too. It's just like I didn't want to be at the point to where, I mean, it helped for me. Like
Mhm.
it worked for me because I like did a lot of long distance running, and so
Okay.
like
How far were you running?
anywhere from like at my peak, anywhere from like 15 to 30 miles a day.
Wow.
I started out. I mean,
Dude, you were running almost a marathon a day.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, but I loved it. It was
Holy
kind of like just
shit.
me being out. But I started off like I started slow, and I didn't like realize like my start. So I started off with, like I said, like a half mile. Then I went to a mile.
Where were you doing this at?
It was by my house. It was actually by Okemos High School. I don't know if you.
So you
know.
just run a circle?
So it was actually like, I would call it a square, but it was up Bennett, down Hewlett, if that's the right road, up Jolly, back up Okemos.
And you just continuously run that.
Yeah, so I mean, it just started off with me running half of it. So luckily, there was like a split point right in the middle from like, and my house was at the split point.
Oh, cool.
So I would start like from my house up Okemos, up Bennett, then go back down halfway. And then one day I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can run the whole thing. And then after I ran the whole thing, I was like,
How many times can I do it?
And I know, yeah. I mean, it was like how many times I can do it. But then for me, it was like, okay, there's no reason why if I can run a full lap, why can't I do that every day? And then for me too, it wasn't like being so much into my time of it. It's just like getting it done.
Right.
So yeah, I would say that definitely like when I got into it way more, like June, July, August, it was like at least like 12 miles a day, at least.
Wow.
But for me, it was just kind of like I knew that was the best way because how I started was like, okay, if I'm outside, there's only one way home if I'm walking. So whether I'm going to run it home or I'm going to walk it home, I'm getting home one way, and I know I'm burning calories.
Right.
So then that just ended up me being like, okay, one day I'm going to try to go to campus. So I just ran to campus one day and then just ended up like that. So then every day I was like, okay, the more and more I ran, I knew that like I could keep pushing my body. Because I kind of felt like with me, I had never really pushed my body to the point of where it was like I feel like I'm breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of always stopped myself and still had a lot left. Like
Right.
or I felt like I still had like a lot left.
You kind of shorting yourself.
Yeah. So that was the big thing is like pushing me. And then again, like you're out there, you have no choice. I'm not gonna call anybody like pick me up if I'm if I'm out there running. I only have one way home, and either it's gonna be running or walking.
That makes me laugh.
Yeah,
that makes me laugh because last year I was training for a 50-mile ultra run.
Oh wow,
dude. Well, I'm going to first state that I didn't finish the run because it was supposed to be virtual, and I wasn't prepared for it. I mean, running wise I was prepared, but as far like being in shape, I was prepared. But as far as like the trail and the gear I needed and the time of year it was and the time I started, I was not prepared.
Yeah, no.
But I remember when I was training for it, I ran from my house up Aurelius all the way down to Columbia Road all the way to, it was in Mason, and then I think Okemos Road, and then to Hagedorn. Ooh. And then all the way up Hagedorn, and I got to Hagedorn and like almost Jolly or something, and I called my wife and I'm like, I think I need you to come get me. Dude, I was like 26 miles in or something.
Oh wow.
And she's like, she was like, you're not gonna finish it. And like in my head, whenever somebody like questions me, I'm like, "Oh, you call me a bitch? You don't think I can finish this?" Okay, all right. No, I'm finishing it. Never mind. Don't come.
No, that was. I mean, like you speaking of that, that was the same way that I kind of was when I started my podcast. It was from my sister like challenging me, like, "You can do this. Like, I mean, if you actually try, like, you can actually do it." And I'm like. She's like, but you're not going to do it. I already know. And I'm like, oh, you're trying me? Like, you're really challenging me right now?
Bro, that's all you need sometimes. Is somebody just be like,
yeah,
no, you're not going to do that.
I know.
They call you on your bluff.
The thing that I realized, too, with my mom, like, it was probably a couple weeks ago, I realized, like, how much your parents probably know about you that you don't even realize. Like, my mom played a trick on me. And I don't even remember exactly what it was for, but I want to say, who knows, probably, like, cleaning the house or something. She had just said something, and it got me motivated. Like, oh, she doesn't think I'm gonna do this, and I just had like a whole clean sweep. Like, got everything I needed to get done, and I looked up and I was like, I'm realizing that she kind of like played me. Like she knew like how I would react to this or how I would respond, and she said what she needed to say.
That's hilarious.
But
parents always have a way.
No, yeah, definitely, and you can learn something from everybody and especially from your parents, but like just realizing now I'm like, all right, I need to pay attention to like whatever other little tricks you guys play.
And make sure I don't fall for it next time. Yeah, that's hilarious. So you were running 30 miles, almost 30 miles a day, depending on the days.
Yeah, I think
that's insane.
The most I ever ran was probably 35, and that was from like my house, so Okemos Road.
How long would that take you?
It was probably like a half-day process. I would say like if I'm running anywhere from, I know I didn't run any lower than like 5 miles. So if I ran like my typical like maybe 5 to 15 or 16, I would do it at like 7:30 pace, 7:30 to 7:40. I think like we're 7:50, but I never got to 8. I mean, like when I started out, but when I was actually paying attention to my times, it wasn't anything like higher than 8.
Are you running with like a Garmin or
No,
no?
just myself, shorts, a t-shirt or a white beater, and the and the
Dang.
dangle headphones.
Dang.
So let's see. So yeah, so yep, yeah, like 6 to 16 miles at like a 7:30 pace. The
Wow.
most I ever ran was like 32 miles, and that was from my house. So Okemos Road, downtown Lansing. So one day I was just like,
Wow.
let me run downtown, because I think I had like did the drive, or the way that I kind of like extended my runs was like always through a bike ride, or like I don't know, like a drive. Like I would see like, oh, okay, like getting here actually isn't that hard. It's just like a road
Right.
away.
Right.
So realizing that, and then just being like, hey, let me try it out. So yeah, I tried it out. I was like, let me run to the Capitol. I don't know why. So I ran to the Capitol. This is how I got my job at the painting company too. I mean, if you're a normal person, I wouldn't say like, I wouldn't recommend to do this, but so I'm running, I'm coming like from campus, passing like Max Bar. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm running, and then I see there's this guy sitting in the car, and like they were working at Max Bar. He's like, hey, do you want to make some money helping out? And I'm like,
Just randomly, you're
yeah,
just
just
running?
randomly. And I mean, at the time of me like running, I kind of was into like a kind of, I don't want to say a spiritual awakening. So I was like more like spiritual, like more like having faith, praying more. So I was kind of
Okay.
like, all right, I kind of feel like my prayers and everything will keep me protected from this. Plus I was on the phone with my friend. So I'm like, okay, let me see what he's talking about.
Mhm.
So it was just like picking up some tile, stuff like that. And he's like, all right, here's my card. I mean, like it's definitely like opportunities to work in the summer, like if you want to. Ended up working with them for the whole summer. So it actually was a good thing.
Wow.
But yeah, back to like the run. So ran downtown. So I got that job, stopped there, finished my run to the Capitol, came back. I'm running home. I get a call from him. He's like, hey, do you want to come back and work later at 7? At this time, I still don't have my car. I'm already halfway back home. It's probably like 4 at the time. And I'm like, I'm not about to sit here and wait till 7. So I run back home. I get home. I'm like, all right, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get back, but I know I can at least run in 7, like a good 7:30 if I'm really, really trying. So I'm like, all right, I think that I have time. So I'm like, I need to go home first at least, too. I don't even know why. I think I needed water or something. So I go
You didn't
back.
have water with you?
No, I didn't run with water. I started like doing a little weird tradition. I would put like $5 under my shoe sole just in case I need it, because when it started getting hotter, because I started running when it was snowing.
Oh, okay.
So when I originally started, it was like November, December time.
Right.
And then like when it got summertime, when it got a little bit hotter, and I was like, okay, one day I think I was out and I was just like completely like so thirsty, and I was like, I feel like I'm about to pass out. I was like, I'll never do this to myself again. So I started taking money with me, but that time I didn't.
You catch me drinking out of a river somewhere.
So yeah, I ran home, ended up going back, and then I had to go home again from there. So that was like the one run that was my longest ever. But yeah, usually I just average. It really depended on the week. Like each week, like I got better at it, so I would kind of ramp it up. But yeah, I would say definitely at least 6 to 16. I didn't do like 20s that much. I did 20s a little bit. It happened after I got into David Goggins.
Okay.
And that's when like I first started. That's actually when like I did the first long run was going to Lansing. I went outside. I think it was like in the morning. So weird. I don't know why I acted like an old lady at the time, but I would go out in the morning, walk, listen to an audiobook with some tea, because we had like this little lake, pond, river in the back of my house.
Cool.
And I was listening to one of his podcast audiobooks, and it just got me motivated. I'm like, you know what? Let me go home, throw my shoes on.
Is it the Can't Hurt Me?
Yeah.
One? Yeah. Dude, I when I was training for that run, I listened to that all the time.
Yeah, that's like probably my top book of all time. And I really didn't get into like listening to books until like I started running.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too. Like I said, it helped me like discover more of myself, and like just stuff that I didn't know like about myself. Like when I was younger, my grandma used to always push books on like me and my sister a lot. My sister loved books. I always was there for like the covers of them. So if the cover looked cool, I'm getting the book, but I never read it. Then I was like, okay, I can actually deal with audiobooks. But yeah, I found his audiobook and I was like, wow, like this is really good. But I mean, like just the narrative of it and how it was like projected was different than any other, because it was like an interview inside of a book.
It was like a podcast.
Yeah, and I mean, him himself and his voice, like it'll get anybody motivated.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he's calling everybody a bitch. You're like,
yeah, I'm like, all right. He had me thinking for a minute to go to the military. I was like, actually, I think I might just stick with the long distance running for now.
So have you had any aspirations or anything to do any ultras or
Yeah, so I mean,
any
actually, like
marathons?
hearing him like talk about and doing like the 50 and the 100-mile runs, and I
Yeah.
was like I felt like I was doing something at like 10,
Right,
15 miles, and
right.
he's like 50 and 100, and I'm like,
200.
shit, let me see if I can like maybe even try to crack like 50 miles. Like not even saying like
Right.
if I can. Well, for one thing, if I can at least jog, like how long can I at least jog? Like that was
Right.
my big thing. So I definitely was interested in like doing marathons and runs and stuff like that. At the time, of course, it being through the pandemic.
Right. Everything's canceled.
Yeah, everything was canceled and there was like nothing in person, so I really didn't
Yeah.
try to. And another big thing for me was I tried to stay away from, as long as I can, like being so much into like timing myself and like paying attention to the time of it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's always cool to look at when you're running 5 miles and you're like, okay, well, I actually kept like a good pace throughout it. But I knew
Right.
like that will all be like detrimental to me just because like how the type of person I am. Like if I know I get into like the statistics or something or like the numbers or something, then I'm like glued into it and I'm like always trying to beat it or get better. And I realized like the goal wasn't actually to like have the best time, it's to be like the best version of yourself.
Right. Absolutely. So, I kind of had that moment the other day. I went to a powerlifting competition because I'm interested in getting into powerlifting. So I was like, I want to go see what it's about. So I went and watched it, and then this week I'm kind of following a powerlifting routine, and I was like, I'm going to look up and see like what I should be lifting, like how heavy I should be lifting, and I'm like, yeah, I'm nowhere near that. I definitely need to be lifting way more. So it's kind of like one of those moments of realization, like I can either make two decisions. I can do this, and I will, or I'm not going to do it, and I'll just continue doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is. And I think everybody has to kind of like look at yourself in the mirror and come to those realizations of where it's like, I hate to call it a make or break moment, but it's kind of just like, I mean, it's really like what you're looking to get out of it too.
Yeah.
Like I'd never encourage somebody to like, another thing with me too in running, like I would see, if I got to campus, I see somebody running across the street, and I'd be like, all right, let me see if I can speed up on them and beat them a little bit. But then I'm like, I have to realize, like, I have to tell myself all the time, like, at this point, I've been running for like at least 7 miles. This person may have just gotten outside. So like, just like the life lessons that you learn throughout, it's just like, I mean, a big thing for me is like just not being in competition with, I mean, being in competition with yourself sometimes is good, but
it's good because
like,
you push yourself.
Yeah. But with other people, I feel like you should never really be in competition because it's not going to help you unless you're ready to get to that point. Like some people like to, I mean, of course, everybody wants to like see how they stack up against the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's moments and times for it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't fully know what you're doing, you're in for a rude awakening.
Right.
When you try to like when you try to get to that point where it's like, all right, let me see if I'm better than this dude.
So when I was running last year a lot, I was running on the river trail, and I ran by this guy. Well, this guy ran by me the opposite way, coming the opposite way, and then he came back, and he kind of got in front of me, and he was taller than me, and he was jacked.
Yeah.
He looked like he just like ran all the time and lifted all the time. That's probably all he did. But I remember thinking like, I'm gonna keep up with this guy, like, because I feel like he's going to push me to be better. And so I stayed right on his tail for the majority of the time that he was running the same course I was going. But yeah, it's definitely good to like, if in that situation I wasn't doing it for competition, I was doing it to help
keep yourself going. Yeah,
right.
I mean, you definitely need those moments too, because like I said, for me, like even if I'm at a point where it's like I've been running 5 miles, I don't know how long this person has been running.
Right.
Sometimes it is like, okay, let me just like enter competition, but then also like, all right, let me see if I can push myself or keep going, even though I don't know how long you've been out here, but it's still like a good push to go.
And then seeing somebody not give up is like a motivator too, because like, all right, he's not giving up, I'm not going to give up.
Yeah,
if he can make it there, I can make it there.
That's the same thing with me too. Like even in being in Okemos, like a lot of the people I would see outside are like older people a lot of times. So I mean, even if they're like walking or jogging, no matter what it is, I'm like, okay, they can do this. Like I can at least like get a little bit of some speed picked up. I can get a little bit of a longer distance going. And I would say too, like those people who you see is like what keeps you going a lot of times too. Like just those waves, those highs. Like I remember one time I saw a guy, he was like, I was going this way, he was coming the other way, and he just walked past, gave me a good like deuce up. I gave him a deuce. I'm like, okay, I don't know why, but it just got me motivated to keep going.
Yeah, because if he sees you stop, he might be like, what's wrong with that guy?
Yeah, and that was another thing too for me. Like I said, I like love running by the street. ironically enough, because I'm like, I have high anxiety sometimes, like when I'm around people. Or actually, no, it's weird. So if it's like a lot of people, I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay. But if it's like just the right amount of people to where I feel like I can be like, I don't know, just
Where
like
you're
too
noticed
personal.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just have anxiety. But for some reason, like running like on the street and by cars kind of like kept me like going and pushing to not want to stop, because I'm like, I don't want to see anybody see me slow down or see me stop. So I'm like, I don't know who could be watching, and I'm like, yep,
Right.
I got to keep going.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. Whenever I'm running, I'm like, I can't stop. That person
Yeah.
might think I'm a bitch.
Yeah, and then it's like, I mean, it doesn't even matter how far you are into your run, or no matter what it is. It's just
Right.
like you just like can't stop, and that's a big thing too from football. I would say football taught me a lot of like my like life morals and like how I am today. That helped shape me too. Is just being like pushing through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of have no choice. Like once you hit that field, you're on that field for whatever that amount of time
Right.
is, and when you come off, you come off. But it's either you're gonna come off better, or you're gonna come off the same that you were before.
Right.
So that helped me too. Just like, I mean, getting through the pain, like I said. Another thing too that I learned, which is kind of funny, is like sometimes when I would like tweak my ankle, I don't know, something like that, I would keep like, I don't know, the next day I would run on it, and it would still hurt a little bit, but I realized like just running through your injuries and running through your pain, depending on what it is. Now, if you got a torn ACL, I don't
Right.
recommend
No.
it. But like building your body up and like helping and stuff like that, that's definitely
Yeah.
a good help. Is kind of like building your pain tolerance too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember after that 50-mile run I did, dude, I was so beat up. It was on a trail, and the terrain was like, it was in Yankee Springs,
Mm-hmm.
and the terrain was almost like running up and down mountains. There was huge drop offs everywhere, and so the next day, even that night, when I came back to the hotel, my knees were swollen. Like I couldn't see my kneecaps. My ankle was swollen, and all my toenails fell off, and they're all black and blue. Dude, they're still growing back.
Oh no.
This was in January.
Do you feel like you kind of like start to enjoy that type of pain sometimes? Because I feel
There's a pride in it for sure.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes, like even when I'm like out running or doing no matter what, like even if you're in the gym lifting, like just kind of, I don't know, getting past that level to where you're like, okay, I know it hurts,
Yeah.
but I can still push through it. Like that kind of
Yeah.
gives you like an extra adrenaline boost, or it just makes you feel better at the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sense of pride knowing that you accomplished it. Even like for me, I knowing that I didn't finish the race, because the reason why I didn't was because I didn't have a headlamp, and it was in the middle of the woods. And
Oh.
dude, I started at like 8 o'clock I started at like 9 o'clock in the morning. I should have started at 6, because then I would have finished it. But it was already 7 o'clock at night, and it was winter time, so it was dark, and you're in the woods.
And yep.
And I don't really know the terrain. I had been around it like 3 times because it was a loop, but I didn't know the terrain, and I'm like, I don't want to die out here.
You don't want to risk it.
And my phone was dying, and the only way I remembered where I was going was I was mapping it out on my phone.
Yeah.
So the only light I had also was on my
your
phone. So I'm like, I need to get out of here for my safety. I didn't know what was out there, and I didn't want to. I don't know. I just didn't want to. I had 7 miles to go,
Oh.
and I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, no, I think I've gotten myself into those situations sometimes, like just being out, and like I think when I got a little more into running, I started doing it a little earlier in the day, because I realized, I think a couple times, like when I was new to it, like a little bit of a beginner, I caught myself like running in the dark too. And I'm like, yeah, this is not where I want to be, because I'm not big into animals or bugs. I'm like, mosquitoes, a raccoon could pop out. I think I remember
Raccoon.
I think I remember one time me and my friend running like junior year, so when I started a little bit in high school, so we went from like kind of by Okemos, by like the library, I don't even know, like probably up by the middle school, and then back around, and he was like going back to the entrance of his neighborhood, and I saw like a deer that kind of looked like a fox, and after that I vowed to myself to never run again at night.
That's hilarious, dude. Deer are they can be vicious. Was it my daughter? It was my daughter or my son. I can't remember who it was. But we were riding on the river trail on our bikes, and they were in one of those carriers, the skid carriers, and whichever one it was, they were a baby.
Yeah.
And they were crying, and the deer heard my kid crying, and they started running like towards me, And I'm like, no way.
Oh, shit.
You need to shut up. This deer's going to kill me.
Bro, that's what I say to myself all the time. And people think I'm crazy because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a phobia or what it is. I know it's not a phobia because I can like get over if I want to, but just
Right.
kind of, I really don't mess with deer. I really don't like them at all. When I run and I see them, I try to stay away. Those and like those little geese, ducks. I
Oh,
don't even know.
dude.
Those seem a little aggressive.
The ones with the long neck.
Yeah, I just like myself, the road.
Yep.
That's it. I don't need any animals involved.
That's hilarious. All right. So, do you do any weightlifting or anything?
So I got into weightlifting, I would say more so probably around July, August time of 2020. So
Okay.
probably about like 3 or 4 months into like my real weight loss journey. When I started though, actually, I take that back because when I started off weightlifting. So that was the
Okay.
only thing. And then I realized like, okay, weightlifting isn't going to get me like the results that I need,
Mhm.
like kind of as fast as I was expecting them. I wasn't expecting them fast, but I'm like, I know like weightlifting, unless
Right.
I'm doing high intensity,
Mhm.
isn't going to burn the calories that like running could.
Right.
So I was just straight running for about like 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And then of course I got to the points where everybody's like, oh my gosh, like you need to gain some weight, you need to add some weight to your body. And I'm like, well, I'm not gaining weight, but I can put on some muscle. But another thing for me too was I ran so much anyway, it really didn't make sense for me to lift because it would just come right off of me, like even if I did have any
Right.
muscle. So I didn't really get into it until I knew I could kind of like shorten down my runs.
Okay.
And I mean, I loved it so much that I was like, if anything, I'm not shortening down my runs. So, like again, getting acclimated back into life, like schedule changing, I got into lifting more. So I got to a point where I was like lifting twice a day. But the thing for me is starting off, I kind of have to give myself like 3 or 4 days of like, hey, like we're gonna sit here whether you like it or not and get like and actually like lift and get a pattern going, getting like a routine going. Because if not, I'm just in there and I'm like, I think some people call it, I don't even know what you call it, but just when, I don't know, when you don't have like a plan in place, you just go in there lifting like just for a pump.
Doing random things.
Yeah. So that's when I kind of was into like more of a routine of it. But for me, I honestly don't like lifting because it's so boring to me. Like I cannot keep my attention.
Have you tried like doing like, I mean it has a bad rap. I don't know why, but CrossFit. Have you tried like doing those type of workouts? Because I feel like because you seem like you need to be active. Like you need to be like in it.
So I tried calisthenics for probably about a month. Because some of my friends are really big into it. Like Alex, I think when I was doing it, he was there a couple times, but I know he's been like a little bit seasoned in it. Like he's been doing it since I was like way bigger. But I did it with one of my friends, Shingrai. He's like really, really big into it. So we just go into the park working on like the basic bars, things like that.
Right.
So kind of learning it. I mean, I enjoyed that for while I was doing it. Just because it was a little bit like different. Like I wasn't so much into like the traditional way of things. I was trying to figure out like, okay, how can I like what is gonna work with like me running,
right?
And how can I like still build muscle to my body, but like muscle that matters,
right?
And like where it's actually gonna be effective. Like so for me, it was like I wanted to get like my chest and my upper body better, but at the same time, like the most important thing for me was probably like my legs too.
Right.
So I definitely tried calisthenics. CrossFit I have not tried. I don't want to say I won't. I know it's a lot of parents. Like a lot of my friends' parents do it. It's kind of a popular thing between parents in Okemos.
It's an old people thing. Is that what you're saying?
No,
I feel like that's what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying it's an old people thing. I'm just saying like the people I know, and at least like in the like demographic I'm in, like a lot of older people there, like
right,
and not even older, like 30s, like mid 30s to like 40s. It seemed like I don't even know. I don't know like the full like wrap up of it or like everything that's involved in it.
I don't either. I'm not.
Yeah.
I've never been part of a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
But I mean I've done like CrossFit type workouts. You know, but I've never been part of a CrossFit gym. So I just thought I'd recommend it because you seemed like you like to be active and not just like laying there, do a set, wait around, do another set.
It's definitely something I feel like I probably would like. A lot of things that I feel like I don't like, once I try them, like I like them. I don't know if that's just because I have like a spirit to just like push through things and like kind of make myself like them even if I don't. But no, it definitely sounds like something I
there was a gym I was kind of a part of. It now closed, but it was out in Perry, and it's called Functional Fitness. And it wasn't a CrossFit gym, but it was kind of CrossFit like. It was like they did a lot of kettlebell stuff and just a lot of just functional movements, like box jumps and burpees and lots of burpees and you're lifting weight too, like but the thing is, like, when you go to like a class like that, you're struggling with everybody else in the room. Like, they may be lifting something different, but everybody's struggling together.
True.
And so there's like this sense of community, amongst the class.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool experience.
No, yeah, that's definitely something that intrigues me, just like what you were speaking to with the community of it. That's a big thing I feel like for me. Like, even if you're doing any type of workout, you need to feel comfortable in the environment. And especially if you're doing it around people, you have to be comfortable with the people around you. I feel like working out kind of gets a bad rep because a lot of people kind of think of it like back to middle school and high school gym class. I mean, unless you were an athlete back then, it probably wasn't so much fun for everybody else.
Right.
But just like being in that environment and maybe like, I don't even know, not liking everybody there or not being that comfortable. So a big thing too is like being comfortable in your environment.
Well, and especially if you're just starting out and you're just like, you're not able to lift a lot or whatever, and there's somebody next to you who's 250 pounds and he can bench 380 pounds or whatever. You're like, dang, I can't lift that.
But at least having people like, I mean, for me, because when I started like lifting with my friend, and then our other friend too, he's like crazy big, like crazy in shape. But he was like, I mean, he's somebody who, like, if you're in the gym with you, you'll be like, oh my gosh, because he like deadlifts or whatever, like over 500 pounds. And I don't even know, he does crazy amounts of stuff. But working with him in the gym, he's kind of like, he's help. Like, you'll still do the same workout as him, and even if it's like a little bit more weight than you can do, like, he'll help out, like, or he knows what to do to kind of like still push you, but not like way past the limits to where you're just like, okay, this is crazy, I can't do this. So having like those type of people in the gym too, who are like, hey, like, okay, I can show you, like, I don't even know, like, what that one, like, is it called a clean?
Oh yeah, clean.
Yeah. So like, I don't even know how to do that, but just having like somebody in the gym. So for instance, if I'm like, okay, I can't do that with like 250 on there, but let me try it with like a 25. So you definitely need people who are going to be like helpful and able to kind of work with you. Like, that's the type of people you need to surround yourself with.
Absolutely. So just kind of wrapping this up, what are you doing these days for exercise? You said you're into weightlifting. You're still running?
So yeah, I'm back and forth on and off with running right now, just with like work.
Life happens.
But I try to put, when I was like at the peak of it, I tried to put running before even like regular life. I had the luxury too, just because I was so young and like didn't have to worry about things at the time. I'm still young and don't have to worry about things.
How old are you right now?
19.
Oh, jeez, you're so young.
I know. But yeah, I mean, running, I mean, that's just like a love of mine. It's kind of just like a way for me to get out, get away from my thoughts. But yeah, a little bit of weightlifting. I'm trying to like figure out what type of things I can do at home.
Okay.
So I have like a pull-up bar at home. I'm on that. Like, I try to be as much as I can. Ab roller, basic like ab workouts. There's like a 6-minute ab workout that I do. Pretty much the basic stuff. For me right now is more so trying to get on track with like eating and health-wise and make sure I'm eating the right things, because for me, that's the most important thing. Yeah, I feel like I was kind of more so at my best when I was eating like the regular foods, like when I was eating steak, but just in the right portions. Right. So trying to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much into like any workouts, but mostly running. Ab workouts, basic push-ups. I really don't try to do anything like too special. I try to just make it like as easy as possible as for myself as I can. A lot of people like kind of complicate it. Definitely don't complicate it. Like, make it easy on yourself. But make it easy and hard at the same time. Make it easy, but when you're going through the process, make it harder and harder. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. There's
a guy I work with, shout out to Sarge. We call him Sarge. That's his last name is Sargentopoulos. But anyways, actually he does a podcast too. Okay. But he does a lot of I guess like functional type workouts, like a lot of like kettlebell things. Like, he'll do a lot of circuit training, and so he'll just like, his workouts are rigorous, but they're only like, I don't want to like state it wrong, but I think they're only like 20 some minutes because I mean he works a full-time job, he has kids, and he has a life too.
Yeah.
But he makes sure that he gets his workout in, and when he does his workout, it's just rigorous, like heavy kettlebell lifts and kettlebell swings and clean and press and
But yeah, that's what you have to do. I was hearing a podcast one time with, I want to say, a soccer player who was explaining how like maybe not burning yourself out like when you're working out every day is the best.
Right.
Kind of like working in increments and
Yeah.
more so like the long term goal of it than like the short term, because he's like, if you burn yourself out every day when you come back to the gym the next day, you're not going to be able to do what you did that day before. So why
Right.
not just do what you did that day, do a little bit of it. I mean, do enough to where it's going to be effective, and then the next day keep going and keep going and keep going.
Right.
So it's definitely all about like the numbers of it, and
it also depends on the kind of workouts you're doing too. Because if like you're doing an intensity workout, then you don't want to be going heavy.
Yeah.
You're going for intensity.
Yeah.
You know, so. All right. So real quick, wrapping this up because I feel like we've gone for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yep.
Jeez.
120.
This is probably one of my second longest podcasts. The one I did earlier was the longest. It was almost 2 hours.
Jeez.
Yeah. So what would be your advice to people who want to lose weight, but I mean, obviously running worked for you, but that's not for everybody. So what would your advice be to them?
Let's see. Don't get caught up in like what you hear all the times, and don't get caught up in like trying to find a quick answer to it. A lot of people say this, and I know I hated this answer. Like, there's no quick solution to it, and there's no quick answer. The best thing that like happened to me is like going through the weight loss process is, again, like learning more about myself. So outside from like, you kind of need to put outside factors in it too. Like, it's not always just about like getting to be like the skinniest and the leanest. It's more so about like the process of it, the journey of it. Make sure you enjoy the journey during the time. Take it for what it is. Like I said, learning more about yourself, like that's the most important thing. Like, if I can just learn from like working out more that, I don't know, blueberries don't work with with me, or strawberries aren't even like gonna help me, or things that I like. I mean, stuff like that. So definitely don't overstress yourself. Don't make it hard on yourself. I mean, those are all easy things to say, hard to do. But just try to take it easy. A lot of people, I mean, are trying to like, hey, I need to get this trainer, I need to do this. At the end of the day, if you're not going to keep yourself honest to it and like not going to keep yourself on track, somebody else can't do that for you. They can only give you tips and guides. So at the end of the day, if you want to make that change, it has to be you in whole who wants to like go through the process. And no, it's not going to be the easiest. It's not going to be the hardest even. But it is a process, and look for the good in it in the moment while you can, and don't wait for it to be like towards the end or like the last minute and you're like, oh wow, you look up and you're like, oh, I'm in this position and I just like deprive myself of everything in life. Like, there's more to life than being in the best shape possible. It's like a good thing to do, but really just make sure that like you're making it what's the word for it? That you're making it I don't want to say comfortable. That you're making it I don't even know the word, but just make sure you're making it unique for yourself. Make sure that it's
something that would work for you.
Yeah, make sure it's something that works for you. Like I said again, everything that works for me, that works for you, might not work for the person who's listening. So just try to figure that out. I know it's hard if you don't have any background in it, but you know, just work with what you have at the time. You don't need everything, but just work with what you have and move on from there, and it'll work out in the end.
Enjoy the process, because it's always a process, and the process never ends.
Yep.
There's never an end spot. There's never, I mean, you may have this thing in your head where you're like, oh, I want to have a six pack, but then what? Once you get that six pack, then what? Then you have to keep that six pack.
Yeah.
So it's never an ending. It's a never ending journey, and so you have to learn to enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I mean, and also keep like goals going all the time. Like what he said is, if you have that six pack, you get the six pack. What are you gonna do next? So make sure that sustaining is a big thing of it too. Long term, do what you have to do to sustain over time. Don't worry more so about like the short term accomplishments of it. Even like the long term accomplishments, I would say the most important is sustaining. So yeah, find your point to stay like that's a perfect point for you. Make sure you have your goals in place and just sustain.
And then real quick again, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to get a website or
Yep.
to promote through marketing, what are your services that you offer and how can they get a hold of you?
So the services offered is really like all around. So I mean, like I said, I love working with smaller businesses who are kind of getting started from the ground up.
And is it just local businesses?
I mean, I'll do wherever. Right
Okay.
now, it's just been local.
Okay.
So I mean, like working like the company I'm at now, Blue Lounge and Dazzling Diamonds Event Center, is off MLK and Jolly, so they're like an event center. So
Okay.
doing there, like even a website, radio ads, billboard ads, like things like that, connecting you with like people in the area. I mean, it's a lot of things that you don't think of with marketing that kind of like are like, oh wow, like I mean, I still don't even know like fully like all the things that come with marketing. My thing is just like it's going to be different for every business and it's going to be different for every person. But you have to find your lane and your avenue and find where what your kind of like I don't want to say specific thing is, but yeah, again, find your lane, find your
Find your
avenue.
niche.
Yeah. But you can definitely reach me on my website at dkillmedia.com, phone 248-595-2462. So yeah, I mean,
Do you have social media? Can
Yeah.
people follow you on social media?
You
your,
can follow
your
my
fitness journey?
Yeah, you can follow my. Well, I actually didn't post my fitness journey on my social media.
Oh, you should have.
I know. I mean, that was another thing for me too. I was like, I didn't really want it to be like
You don't want
public. I
right.
kind of needed to digest it myself first
Mhm.
and like appreciate it through myself first before I just went out and posted it.
Right.
But I mean, if you want to just look at my Instagram, it's dkill with a couple L's. I want to say like 7, just DKILLL. Somebody took DKILL. I DM'd them. They still don't want to give me their name. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, there you can reach me. Website, phone, that's always the best. But yeah.
All right, cool, man. Well, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me on here.
I hope maybe one day we can have you back on.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks again.
All right.